initial student athlete, they have to have this information, because once you are enrolled in a full-time program in collegiate studies and you plan to participate in collegiate athletics, those two tiers, which is the high school GPA, making sure that you graduate, and the SAT or the ACT score is which defines your qualifier status.
Okay.
Which shows, and what that means is how far you can participate in collegiate athletics, basically in a nutshell.
Well, I think it's important for both parents and students to understand that you're not just talking about sitting for these exams. There are some specific scores that really are threshold scores. So could you share with us what the ACT and the SAT thresholds are? For the ACT, you would have to have a minimum of 68 or a 17 as the minimum scores to qualify. For the SAT, you would have to have a minimum cumulative score of 820, and those are the minimum scores in order to participate in collegiate athletics, which are NCAA standards. Okay. And as you're preparing during your high school years, I think it's important too for the student athletes as well as their parents to understand that there are some core classes that have to be taken. And could you share with us some of the things that are going to be required on the transcript?
Well, what the is looking for those core courses will be 3 years in English, 2 years in science, 2 years in natural science, 2 years in mathematics, and 3 years in additional courses, which could accumulate to technology courses or religion courses or foreign language courses. But basically just want to make sure that you graduated with your core curriculum and you have a minimum GPA of a 2.0. That is a requirement that you need to have, the minimum requirement to be a student athlete. So they're looking for those two things to make sure, number one, you graduated with the core courses, the 2.0 GPA, either the 820 on the SAT or the 68 or 17 on the ACT. And I say those two numbers for the ACT because some students just know about the 17, they just know about those numbers. But me, from a compliance perspective, you know, when we're looking at the ACT scores, we're looking at those areas that average out, that though their numbers add up to 68 in those areas of reading, writing, mathematics, analytical thinking, all of those areas that the ACT test focus on.
Wow. And one of the great things, and I'll just kind of step back just for the parents to understand and the students to understand, is that most students and most parents kind of look at sports as plan A, but a lot of times they don't bring their A game. So if they don't bring their A game, then they really have to be prepared for plan B. And that's in essence what Coach Anderson and you and the entire team there are interested in doing. Talk to us about the delayed college enrollment after high school.
Well, sometimes after a high school student graduate from high school, they may feel like they're not ready to go to college yet, or they may feel like college is not for them. They would rather go out and work, or maybe they just want to take some time off to think about some of their options. During that time, the NCAA is concerned that once they do enroll in a collegiate program full-time of studies, they're concerned with your amateurism now. Because they want to know, what were you doing between that time from high school graduation until you actually enrolled in a full-time collegiate program. And what they're concerned with, they send a plethora of questions, like I said before, is that they want to know what you did. Did you participate in any organized teams? They ask specific questions like, was score kept? Was it planned in advance? Did you wear uniforms? Did you receive any monies for this? This is all goes to Bylaw 12 in the Division II NCAA manual, which is concerned with amateurism, which means before you become a student athlete, you are considered an amateur. There are rules that govern amateurism, so that's something that our coaches are well aware of when they go out and they're recruiting.
Great. Now, what are some of the required forms for the NCAA for our student athletes?
Before a student athlete can even participate in collegiate athletics, they have 4 major areas, 3 forms, and 1 physical that they have to take. Number one would be the Buckley Amendment Statement. And what that is that it's a form that the student athlete signs that gives permission to our head athletic trainer or any doctors or nurses or any type of groups that we utilize to check out our student athletes, whether it's they're having their initial physicals or if they get injured, they need to have an x-ray, an MRI, or even if they need to have surgery. So this document is saying, I give the institution, Lemoyne College, the opportunity, trust them, and I'm giving them my consent that you can go ahead and provide services for me, medical services. Right. So that's what the Buckley Amendment form is. Another form is the Drug Consent Statement, and that's the NCAA form that every student athlete must fill out or you are automatically ineligible. So what this drug consent form does is that, let me give you an example. If an institution goes to championship and it's an NCAA championship, the NCAA has the right to drug test your student athletes at that point. And what they're doing is basically they could use this information for statistical information, and it's also a way to keep student athletes aware of like enhancement drugs. There are a lot of supplements now that you can just go to GNC, the store, and just buy over the counter. But our head athletic trainer, she always, she gives them each year, she gives athletes a list of banned drug substances, right, so that they are aware this is what you're responsible for. She tell them, don't take anything until you bring it to me so I can go ahead and assess it and tell you if it's okay or if it's not. So the drug consent form is mandatory. If you do not sign, you will not be eligible. Another form that we use is a student athlete statement. And what the student athlete statement is basically, it talks about amateurism to recruiting, to financial aid, to eligibility, to gambling, to if you've ever had a positive drug test, when and where. Basically, it's a process that they're asking the student athlete how much knowledge do they know about what they're being involved in those different areas, and basically knowing what are you responsible for. So it's a lot of information. When we have those meetings, sometimes we have to stop and I have to walk the student through so they can actually understand, because this is what they say, I feel like I'm signing my life away.
Yeah. Wow.
I say, well, this is the process of if you want to be a student athlete, you have to do the paperwork first. And that's what I tell them when I introduce myself. I am the paperwork of sports. So it's something that it has to be done. We have to be accountable, when we're dealing with these student athletes and their academic history and their physical history. The last thing that a student athlete would have to do is have a physical. Mm-hmm. So if a student athlete comes and want to participate in collegiate athletics, which that goes through our head athletic trainer office, they will have to have a physical. She may set that up. Miss Brandy Dodge is our head athletic trainer. She may set it up. Or if they have proof that they have had a physical in the past 6 months, then we'll accept that. So they have to have those 3 documents as well as proof of the physical, which completes their file to say, okay, you can go ahead and practice. Now that's just for practice. That's not competition.
Wow. That's amazing. Just some things that I about as you were talking were things like you're really helping the student athletes and you're protecting them from themselves in a way. I think it's quite interesting that you say you are the paperwork of sports. And how many students have come to you later? And maybe this is more of a rhetorical question, mm-hmm. and hopefully if there's an athlete that you're working with currently, they will see this, mm-hmm. and come to you and thank you for what you're doing. But to just think in terms of some of those student athletes that you have worked with, do they ever come back and say, I had this experience, you shared something with me, and mm-hmm. I really want to thank you for helping me out?
Sometimes. I mean, I can count on my hand how many times the student athletes have come to me with situations like that. But I truly believe that on every level, relationships develop naturally.
Yes.
I don't push myself on the student athletes. I treat it as if they want to open up to me, I allow that. But like I say, I don't push myself on them. But I try to be consistent. If they come to me and need some help, I want to make sure that I see it through the end. So that's how I treat my relationship with the student athlete. And like I say, I'm closer to some. With others, that's just because they have molded to me. And some of them, When I tell them the truth about what they're doing, you know, their academic history, I mean, it has shown me right here what you're doing. They always tell them I keep it real with them. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't lie to the student athletes. I don't lie to the coaches, and I don't lie to the athletic director. You know, I tell them the truth. This is what it is. And if you're not eligible, I'll tell you what you need to do to get eligible, and it may take some work. So it just depends on how bad that student athlete wants it.
Wow. Well, I know this is a lot of information and definitely a lot more than we can cover during this time. One of the things I'd like to invite the audience to do, because invite for them to bombard you with calls and emails. I'm sure Coach Anderson is going to really have a problem with that, with you already being really stretched. So I'd like to invite all of the listening audience to give me a call at 901-870-7492 or send an email to me at rixinternational@msn.com. And the reason that I want to do that is to maybe see if I could filter some of those questions and get them to you, and then maybe we could get them back to those young couples, or rather to the young couples, or to the student athletes. Let's talk a little bit more as we're winding down about some of the athletics that are going to be taking place. What kind of events are going to be taking place over the next few months with Le Moyne?
Okay, well, you do know that it's men and women's basketball season, which is our winter sports.
Yes.
So we have home games coming up December, let me start with November. November 20th, we have a home game. November 29th, then we have December 1st and December 3rd. Okay. So those are our home games sessions before the new year starts over, which will be our spring semester in January 2012.
Wow. Well, you know, we've just really started chipping away at the tip of the iceberg, because there's so much information. Right. And man, I hate that the time is run out. So we're really winding down. One of the things that I'd like to ask the viewers to do is to don't hesitate to go online. And once again, what is the website for the Le Moyne College?
It would be www.loc.edu.
Okay, and we would invite everyone to go to the website, see all of the sporting events that are going to be coming. You do have 10 teams, is that right?
Correct. We sponsor 10 sports at Le Moyne College, the minimum for Division II.
Super. Well, once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Best Of. It's certainly been a pleasure to talk with you. And ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to make sure that we take a little bit of time to remind you of who we've been talking with here today. Ms. Danielle Carrington. She is new to the Memphis area, and we are really happy that she's here. And Coach Anderson, thank you for sharing her with us today. She is the Athletic Compliance Officer and the Academic Enhancement Coordinator for the Le Moyne College. You probably have to have a business card with two sides on it, huh? Yeah.
No, I think they can fit it in one.
But we'd like to thank you so much for all that you're doing for our student athletes as well as for their families. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you for being our viewers. And Ms. Carrington, thank you once again for being our guest on the Best Of today.
You're welcome.
All right. Viewers, this has been the Best Of, and I am Ricky Tucker, your host, once again, for those folks that may want to get a question that's related to athletics or the NCAA. If you would give me a call at 901-870-7492, and we will get an answer back to you from Ms. Carrington. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, and remember to always be your best. Boy, we could probably